Hello! That was way more sudden than I thought it was going to be. Welcome to the stream. This is the first time I've ever done something like this. So, I don't know who's here. If you like, you can pop into the chat and say hi. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And otherwise, I'm just going to be trying to make some visuals for one of the tracks on my upcoming album. So I'm going to be using vSynth, which is this package within MaxMSP. And the great thing about vSynth is that it is essentially, it's what it sounds like. It's a video synthesizer. I've kind of done a little bit of a preliminary setup here just because it's a little tedious at first, the way I have got my my visual processes working. So I've got the stems from this track, Blue Iris, and then I've also got the song itself in its mixed version. So I'm just gonna hop right in and start figuring out what this thing's gonna look like. Something for the bass line, and it's probably going to be blue. To modulate it. Too fast. Okay, let's see here. I want it to go the other way. I believe if I use the polarizer, and polarize it. So right now I'm just trying to get a baseline of like some sort of imagery I like. Also hi, by the way, to those who just joined. Feel free to leave a comment. I've got the chat up here, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, I'm just gonna... Why is this still playing, but I can't hear it? I'm just gonna keep going here. And I'll leave the track playing, so that when I go inevitably silent, something's happening. I'm doing is mixing these modules together and trying to kind of morph this basic spiral, which I don't really love very much, so we'll try something different. Let's see, what can we do? Let's stop this. Instead of a radial, what if we take this whole thing, try some different waveforms. So that's a little bit more, it's a little less sine wavy and a little more dynamic. I really want something that looks kind of like an iris flower. So it's got to kind of come up, which might mean that it has to change its polarity so that it's going out instead of in. There we go. But this really just looks like a spiral, so we gotta do something. And when it looks too much like a spiral, the trick is typically to mash it against something else. So if we take, let's try this here. Still looks just like a spiral. So let's modulate our other radial waveform generator. I'm going to start over. I know I like that color blue. I think I want to build up a pretty general visual out of maybe square waves, so it's a little bit more chunky. I like to modulate square waves against themselves so that we can kind of create a slightly more maybe interesting pattern. It's going way too fast though. Oh, hi, Andy. Thanks. I don't want it to just look like checkers, so we're gonna make something really like Steven Soderbergh, Ocean's 11, lines all over the place. And then what we can do is make some adjustments to that make it a little more flowery. So like before we move on, I just want to try to get rid of some of these like flashing bits here, which is going to be pulse wave. Of which one? I've just got something that's a little too thin, and it's coming in and out for some reason. Okay, that looks a little better. It's maybe a little too angular, so we'll make it a sine wave. And we'll also make it so that it's nice and flowy. And it's kind of interrupting itself here, but I want it to go, yeah, that looks kind of cool. My whole process with this is just to kind of fiddle with the different dials and try to arrive at something that looks nice. So we got this kind of neat baseline. I'm going to, yes, it's absolutely possible to modulate parameters, and that's what I'm eventually going to get to. I've got these envelope followers up here, which are going to be, they're following different parts of the track, and if I just hit play, you can see it's generating some numbers here, and those numbers can then be transferred to any of the parameters in any of these modules. So I just don't know what's going to be modulated yet, so we're gonna hold off to find out. Let's see. So I'm going to, I really like this waveform generator too, because it has this noise function. So then we can modulate some noise in, which is like, it doesn't need a whole lot, but just something. And actually this would be a great parameter to modulate with some, with one of the tracks here. So like, let's just try that out. So what we're gonna do is we're going to say, we're gonna have a message called PM, just like this PM, which stands for pulse modulation. And then the $ carries whatever number is being received and applies it to the internal part of this module that is assigned to the pulse modulation. So if we very simply do something like this, and hit play, this is a very small, I have to hit this with a $1, $1. There we go. So we can see this number is following this number. Now that's pretty sensitive, so I might have to scale some things, but that's the kind of the idea of what we'll eventually be doing with these. Okay, let's get rid of that and set this back, because I wanna keep fiddling with this visual until it's kind of that flower. Right now it just looks like clashing waves, but there are cool things we can do to kind of mess with it a bit more. So we're gonna do, I'm looking for the cart pole. This is going to assign Cartesian coordinates to polar coordinates. Don't ask me what that stands for. I don't know math very well. I just know it turns it into a circle. Now this is looking an awful lot like La Canoche, which is the other track I did, so maybe this isn't what we want to do. Instead, what if we assigned polar coordinates to Cartesian coordinates? Hey, that looks kind of bloomy like a flower. It also kind of looks like it keeps having that big blob at the top, so I want to get rid of that. Maybe, let's see, that just seems to be part of the cycle. So maybe if we reduce the pulse wave on it. Ba-ba-dum-ba-dum. You know what we might end up doing? That seems to have done, nope, not quite. What we might end up doing is just zooming in on part of this image. I think this is looking kind of nice though. I just want to play around with a couple different waveforms. Try to find the one that's the most flowery. Definitely not the square wave. I think this is actually really nice. I like the way that they're kind of flowing in and out of each other. Okay, so let's see. Andy, I think you're the only one here. You can hear and see everything okay, right? And there is a little bit of a delay, so I'll look forward to your message. For now, though, we'll move on and get the, okay, cool, thank you. We're gonna bring up a displacement module. Okay, dude, so as long as it's just you and me here, like feel free to ask any questions. We'll just hang out and make some cool visuals. I'll stop being so nervous and trying to be professional about this. Okay, we're gonna take this and displace it. I just gotta make some more room on the page here. And so the displacer kind of does what it sounds like. It'll zoom in or move from the left and right, X and Y, up and down, and the angle, like what if this was upside down? Does that look more? No, I don't think so. What about if it was on its side? Almost looks windy, which I kind of like. And if it's up and down, I'm actually going to try to get just, so this is right on the edge. This line here is currently like blank screen. But I kind of like the minimalism of that. Let's just see what we have on the other side. Okay. I think I've decided. This is actually kind of like the running horse optical illusion. I look at it this way, it looks like it's trending downward. If I flip it the other way, oh, now it looks like it's going up, but it's still sort of... Okay, we're gonna stick with kind of here. I think I like that best. Okay. All right, so now that we've got some shapes we like, what's the next step gonna be? I kind of want to make them feel a little more 3D. And I really love this XYZ displacement object because it's like my my favorite object in the whole vsynth package, because it will kind of make things pop into like points, or you can also do like line strips, triangles, etc., etc. But points is my favorite. The reason why is you can change the size of them, and they can become like really large bubbles or very small fine points. But depending on the resolution of the dots, what exactly does it do? The XYZ displacement, I will tell you if that is the answer to your question. So what it does is it will displace the image along every axis in 3 dimensions. So if I have, let me just put this back here. The first thing to keep in mind is that it has a resolution. So that's this 1000 and 1000. If I set these to be 200 and 200, you're going to get a less, let me make this larger, a less resolved image. Resolved? You can see individual points. If I go down to like 20 and 20, you can see just these dots. And this is actually what I did for the video for Reach Out. So they're little individual dots. And then if I make those dots larger with this this piece here, it's basically just interpreting the image that way to create some sort of lattice work. Now, if I change that to line strips, it's the same image as before. Yeah, it's extremely flexible. It's the same image as before, but it's just being rendered in a different way. So that's the first thing to keep in mind, is the resolution and the kind of rendering that it's doing. So like I said, I like points. I'm going to make the points a little smaller, and I'm going to bring this up to maybe 500 by 500, just so that we can see the dots. We will see the dots when they are displaced. So then the other part is the displacement. So we've got our flat 2D image. And what this is going to do is displace along the x-axis. Hey, Robert. The x-axis, why can't I see it doing anything? I think I know why. It's because it needs a little bit of z-axis. We're going to bring the size of the dots down. Okay, bye. So why am I not seeing anything on the x-axis? The y-axis? Yeah, y works. Okay, so y is basically pushing those dots up and down, right? For some reason, I'm not seeing the x-axis do anything right now. I'm not sure if that's just because of the way the image is moving. Anyway, let's put it back a little bit here. So The issue with using the y-axis is that you can kind of see the edge of the screen, right? You can see this line here. So if we're going to use it, it's not going to be much at all. But the z-axis, which is our depth, like closer to you, that is the one that is my absolute favorite. Because you can like send it further away and it looks further away, and you can bring it closer toward and it looks closer toward. That x-axis is really not doing anything. Okay, so now here's the last thing that this module can do, because it is just so flexible, but I need to copy and paste something out of the help file real quick here, which is this pack rotate. This is actually a really great example of what it kind of does. Okay, there's the x-axis. You can see it kind of shifts along the x-axis, y up and down, and z in and out. And the incredible thing about these help files is that, like for vsynth, is that just like with regular MaxMSP, they've got really clear instructions of all the controls you can send into it and some examples of how it can be used. Okay, so I've just copied and pasted that rotation control, and we're just going to route these in to XYZ displace. And the way this is going to work, we have the position on the screen, XYZ, and the rotation on the screen, XYZ. So if I, for example, zoom out, go into negative numbers, it's kind of acting like a displacement where it's zooming in and out. And then I can also move it up or down with the y coordinates. I don't really want to do that though. What I want to do is rotate it along the y-axis and the z-axis. No, the x-axis. I want it to kind of flatten out. There we go, something like that. And I'm also going to bring the z displacement down so that you can see a little more clearly what's going on. So this is pretty, but it's not, it doesn't a music video make. So I really like this, this blooming thing that the blue lines are doing. Maybe for once in my life I won't use the points, and we'll try seeing what other displacement renderings will do. They're just a little too chunky for my liking. So yeah, I just really like polka dots. Well, okay, we'll save the XYZ displace for a little bit here and continue to work on the basic stuff, because there's still lots we can do with this. For example, with these different parts, it could be cool to have like feedback being triggered by one of the different parts. Yep, you got it right, Andy. That's basically what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna put a feedback processor onto this. This is basically like a, well, you'll see what it does. It's feedback. So as we turn this up, we can see that it kind of drags through the space, which makes it pretty ethereal. I'm also thinking in order to kind of like get the that even more ethereal, I think I want a time delay temporal filter. And what the temporal filter does, again, you'll see what it does. Basically a frame delay sort of situation. So if I turn this up, you can see that it is like getting, let's turn the feedback all the way down so that we can just see what the temporal filter is doing. So here's nothing. And this one is like freezing things in time, sort of similar to the feedback, but a little different. If I turn this all the way up, it freezes the whole image. But if it's quite high, we can see it sort of starts to paint in the background. It's at 98, that's pretty cool. But I don't always want it to stick around necessarily. Then it just kind of becomes this turquoise background. Or not turquoise, but seafoam green. So maybe something like that. Now, just like any additive mixer, it matters what goes where and in what order. So let's just see what happens when the feedback is on the other side of the temporal filter. So maybe it does a similar thing where it washes it out. But maybe that's how we get it to be even more kind of wispy without triggering the background color. Even that is kind of doing it. Let's try that. Yeah, I really like this. It's even got some dimensionality too, just with the amount of light in each part of the wisp. But I am seeing that the background, we can see now, like this is the black background and this is what it is now, which is this green color. And I don't really want that. So is that a feedback thing? It's kind of both. Let's bring this down to like 90 and this one up to 65-ish. Okay. Okay. So this is a very different image than just the waveforms, but if I put a preview in, we can kind of link these previews into different parts of our chain here. Like remember, this is what we started with. And I just think this is way prettier. Okay. So now that we've got it nice and wispy like this, something that I like to do for a really dynamic and natural feeling visual is introduce a delay chain. So we're gonna do that with a couple things. I'm actually gonna bring this whole menu down. We're going to use a Luma key. We're going to use a hue modulator. We're going to use a edge and a displacement. So the basic way that the delay works is going to be that this chain goes into the Luma key. And a Luma key, basically, it's like a chroma key where it'll take out different colors, but this will take out, I believe, light at a certain strength. So into the Luma key. And then we're actually going to bring a preview in just so that we can see kind of what's going on here. I'll make the main one a little smaller. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're displacing, and just like before, we can zoom in and out with the displacement, but that's not the only thing we're doing. What we're going to do then is put a hue modulator on it. And we don't really, maybe we don't need the edge modulator, but this is going to go into the other texture that the Luma key accepts. That's the real reason that we're using this Luma key object, is that it accepts 2 texture inputs. So once I do that and adjust the zoom and the threshold, we can see that we've created what is effectively a delay. Now I don't love these square things here. We can change this to be, whoa, crazy. This is maybe a little too much. This is maybe a lot too much. Let's clear it. You should be cleared by now. There we go. So what I want to make sure of is that it fades away before it comes too much. Yeah, it can get pretty hairy there in the multiverse. I want it to fade away. So what I could do is have another, not feedback, but a low pass filter, which is essentially like a blur. And so that every time it goes into this in through this chain, it gets blurrier and blurrier as it goes down, which kind of works, but it's still a little too boxy. So the other thing we can do is like adjust the angle of each delay. This is a little better, but it's still, you can still kind of see the frame. So what we may want to do maybe, just trying to think of how to get rid of that edge around the box, or the frame that I can still kind of see every now and then. It may be that we take away this displacement and save it for later. Yeah, because now we don't have the frame that was being created by that displacement. Now we've got this sort of bloom that happens at the top of the screen, but we can always put this back in. And get rid of that in the final part of the image rendering. Make that a little smaller. So that's really pretty. The last thing I want to do with this loop is change the hue so that every time it repeats, it sort of slightly changes its color. But I want to keep it sort of in the realm of blue because this tune is called Blue Iris, which can be both a flower and the part of the eye. So I think this sort of like blooming eye structure is kind of cool. So how are we going to get that color to be right? We might have to change this to be even more blue. Maybe like there. come back. So this light function might be a cool thing to map to one of our tracks, just because I'm noticing as it comes down to like 0.95, it gets really thin and it almost looks like ribbons. But then as it gets a little higher, it sort of takes up a little more of the frame, and it also becomes white. I don't ever want it to get this white, but maybe like here. So I'm just going to make a little comment that I really like from like 0.94 to 1.4. I think 1.4 was still okay. Yeah. Okay, so if we set this to 0.9, oh, we can go lower than that. Let's go 0.92 is about as low as we can possibly go, and it still looks like ribbons. 0.92. Now if we adjust the hue, like we can make it super trippy and that 70s showy, but I just want it to be different shades of blue. So you can maybe have purple all the way there at the core. Now if I up the light, let's just see how that changes things. I think that's really nice. It's not as luminescent as I think I want it to be, so we can do something with that. How are we going to make it glow? Is it the pedestal? No, it is not the pedestal. So it'll have to be typically I would use feedback to make it look brighter, but I don't want to muddy up the screen. Yeah, me too. I'm just thinking that it can well, let's see here. So if we're going to use a scale object, and we'll have to figure out what our range is for our sound, but I know that it's going to be between 0.92 and 1.4 is going to be my eventual output. And that's going to be the light. So we'll just plug this in here into our colorizer. And I can get rid of that now. Let's just try, turn this on. Sorry, every time I scroll around the screen, the visuals get disrupted. Probably this line is going to be the most prominent throughout the whole piece. It's also going to be consistently there, and if we like the ribbons, maybe we do this one. So let's just take a look at what it's going from 0 to 0.5. Oh, it's going up to just about 1. So I don't want a whole ton of patch cables messing things up, so I'm going to send this as main mel. And over here, we're going to receive main mel. the other thing that we can do is adjust the time, like how fast these ribbons go. And for that, I'm going to need a different waveform generator. Transparency of what are you thinking there? Yep, I have a way of doing that. I'm curious about what you're thinking, but we'll check it out. I'm just trying to reset this to be the waveform generator 3 because that one I can adjust the speed a lot more. But I don't want to delete what I have, so we're gonna bring up a preview. Just double check. Of course. Everything there is correct except for it is vertical and horizontal, so it is like that. And the frequency modulation needs to be 0.57. 0.57. That's still not quite right. Why is that? Speed is less for sure. And the bias is not the bias modulation. There we go. It is at 16.1. That's pretty close, but it's not quite the same. Why is that? It should be all the same. Frequency modulation, check. Angle. It should be like a 45-degree angle. Okay, I think that's close enough. So now what I'm going to do is swap these out. Just because... Oh, hello, where'd you go? Uh-oh. Where'd it go? That's very different. What happened is there we go, there it is. I just swapped out these waveform generators so that they were, this one's a lot more flexible, the waveform generator 3. It just doesn't have this noise module in it, so it wasn't ideal for what I want to do next, which is put a control on the speed. Because like we can have it go really fast and for some reason that totally gets rid of it. Why is that? I like the other one a lot better. I'm kind of regretting my decision here. Okay, we're gonna do some undoing. I can't undo? What do you mean? I can't undo? Well, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. However, I'm pretty sure I can remember how I did it here. Point to there. Okay, we'll stick with a good thing. Yeah. You cannot undo. Okay. So that is, I think, kind of what we're gonna do here. So what we can do, Andy, to your question about transparency, is I can put in a fader. I think this one here, just the first one. And what we can do is put this at the end of the chain so that each one kind of disappears more and more. Now this is starting to look a little messy, so I'm going to clean it up. So that's pretty cool. I wonder if I want another. I want the outer ones to be more luminous. So in order to do that, I think what I just need to do is put a additive mixer here. And what that's going to do is it's going to add on top. But it's only going to add the output. That might be too much, actually. Let's just see here. It's definitely brighter. It's maybe too bright. We can bring it down slightly. The other thing we could do is use a blend mode mixer, which can be very useful for when you have different different textures happening at the same time. Let's try that actually. Just unclip these. So first off, we get the same effect because it's additive. Sometimes I like to just see what it would look like if we subtracted. Too much. Subtraction is great when there's a different texture. Multiply gives us a really deep look. It's maybe too dark. Average is just kind of bland. I think what I need to do, because I just want the top layer. Just want the top layer of this delay chain. So we're going to take this, before it goes into the delay chain, we're going to mimic what comes out of the delay chain exactly, which is just this. And then, so now we've just got the top layer. It looks like that. And if I do all the remaining layers, and let's say make it additive. Now just the top is glowing. And I think that gives it some nice depth. Let's just try some other ones. Yeah, multiplication only multiplies what it can see, or what the multiplier is interacting with. Don't want to exclude. Screen is okay, but I think it's just modulo is pretty weird. Sometimes it'll get like red. And it's just a little too green. Minimum is kind of cool. But I think we gotta go with additive. Or screen. But they kind of do a similar thing, but I think I like additive more. Okay. So now we've got our glowy ribbons. And we've got some sound interaction. I think I know what we're gonna do, everybody. So our main baseline here, we're going to send that as baseline. I should really just use camel case the whole time, which is this lowercase and then uppercase, just because that's how most of everything else in Max that I'm used to using works. And then we'll do the low mel. And boom, boom. Just setting these up so that we don't have to have a mess of patch cords. If we have time, I might show you some of the older visuals I made, which are just a mess of patch cords. It was very much like, what if I connect this here? What if this goes here? It was not very organized, so I'm trying to keep this as organized as possible. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. This fader is going to be controlled by the main baseline. So that we only see the background as long as the baseline is active and on. I believe AMT is the control. No, it is fader. Okay, fader. Now we want to see how loud that is, what the amplitude is like. Kind of goes up to 0.5, 0.6. I think 0.6 is probably where it peaks out. Maybe we'll say 0.7. Yeah, okay, 0.8 is going to be our peak. Maybe not. Okay, 0.8. So we're going to scale it. Between 0 and 0.8 is going to be between 0 and 0.86. which is where we are now. And that's just going to translate what comes out of the baseline amplitude, turn it into something this fader can recognize. Now it's a little too up and down, so I'm going to put a slide on it. And I like to kind of have it mimic the decay of a guitar, so it'll be pretty quick going up and kind of slower coming down, which is what this 3 and 10 is the attack speed and the decay speed. You can see it's really quick to go up and then kind of is slower going down. It might need to be even slower than that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for the bass line. And then the melody is controlling the... It was the size of this, but it's not really doing that anymore, is it? Oh, it is. Something about the way we changed, the way I changed the waveform generator here means that it is different now. Okay, well, while that's going, we'll put it back. And the other thing I want to do is put the twinkling on input 2 here. Because what that's going to do have the glow that we created here be a little more fluctuating. So let's maybe say 0.2 to 1. Have the same slide. So now what we should see is that it glows considerably less. So maybe even less than that. Maybe negative 0.2. Let's just set this to 0. I think the other thing I want it to do is have some feedback, so that every time it twinkles, it sort of shimmers for a little bit. It's just a little too, it's not as ribbony as it once was. So we gotta fix that. Hi, Barry. Trying to make the background a little more visible. Okay. So we're going to scale this between 0.58. You know, this one's probably going to need a slide as well. Too bright. I'm just going to take off this fader for a moment. Oh, why can't we see it? Because all of these are going in here. Okay, we've made a little mistake. And that is that the background delay visuals are being controlled by both the baseline and the twinkle on this fader and this fader. So we can't have that. So instead, it'll just have to be a little bit more complex with the routing. What we're going to do is have, it's going to have to be an additive mixer, 3 channels. Just turn them all up for now. So what we need is 1 channel for the, actually it's good that we've got a few more people here, so I'll go over what's going on so far. We've made some interesting, and I'll actually pull up the preview so that you can see what's happening everywhere on the chain. So we've transformed these waveform generators into this. These lovely intersecting square waves and sine waves and a saw wave. And then we took it through a pull to car to kind of give it this more swoopy effect. You're starting to see that it resembles this. And then we colored it all blue. Then we made it a little bit more feedbacky and with a temporal filter and a feedback. And then we put it through this delay chain. And what that delay chain is doing is turning it into make this a little larger. These kind of spiral patterns, which are really gorgeous. Now, what we're doing over here, this displacement here has the output of both the primary layer as well as the delay chain. This one just has the primary like top layer. So what we need to do in order to have the twinkle audio cause the primary layer to glow, which is what it's doing right now. Oh, I gotta disconnect this. Right, it's kind of making it glow. And I really like that, like the high guitar parts to cause that effect. But it's also causing the background with the delay to fade in and out, which is what the bass line is supposed to be doing. So what we need to do is have 3 channels. One with basically the background, this delay chain that is independent of the twinkle. Basically, I think what we need to have is 2 primary or 2 top layers that are going to interact kind of like they are right now, but then separate the background so that the bass line can control the appearance of it. So I'm going to get rid of this preview, and I'm going to grab that additive mixer, and what we're going to do is it as easy as just putting this into here. Let's see. So that has everything and the top layer, which is not the worst thing in the world. And then if I just put this back in, that's extremely luminescent words. Messing up words live on YouTube. Okay, so we're gonna put this back, and we're gonna see how that plays out. Kind of looks messier. Going to set this so that it can hit a maximum of 1, and that way we don't get all the feedback in the background, because that's what's happening in the very back of that delay chain, is it's going past one and then it's feedbacking on itself with this fader. Okay, this is looking really nice. I think it's time to bring back our friend the XYZ displace. I have an idea for it. That's going to be a little more creative than my uses of it in the past. Let's just focus on what's going on here. So what I want my XYZ displacement to do is kind of be the tail of the primary top layer. Whenever I say the primary layer, I'm talking about like basically these bright ribbons. But I want it to be the like a shimmering comet tail on them. So let's just see here. If I bring this down to just be dots, well, that's pretty boring. Why are you doing that? You're just dots on a screen. It's not the most boring it could be, but it's definitely not what I was hoping would happen by just plugging that in. Okay. If we take the output here, so it shouldn't, well, clearly it is just looking at all of the pixels on screen. But I want it to primarily be glowing with these ribbons. So maybe if I just up this a little bit. Okay, that's a little better. So it's still not quite what I had in mind. I think the problem with the XYZ displace is that it's sort of bound to one direction. And because these ribbons are so dynamic in their direction, I can't get it to sort of like act as a particle system. So instead, what can we do instead to give it more of a tail? Maybe it just needs another feedback. Although there is quite a bit of feedback on here already. It also seems as though there is like a larger version or maybe a smaller version of so like that's larger than these ones. Is that just the additive? That's just where they're intersecting. Okay, we're gonna try something maybe different than the additive mixer. Play with a different blend mode. Okay, so there's our layer. It's already going to be glowing because of the twinkle. So this is just our background elements. Plus that one foreground element. So we've just taken from partway through the loop. Okay. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer if I can. I am gonna otherwise figure out what to connect my other parts to. I've got the twinkle, I've got the bass line, and I've got the main melody. So there's the low melody and the high melody left. And they're just sort of counter lines. So let's see, what could they interact with? R twinkle is not a built-in feature, but R is short for receive messages without patch cords. That's very small. Let me zoom in and say R. Oh, it doesn't change the size of the dialog box. Receive messages without patch cords. But then, yeah, R and S interact with receive and send. But then you can choose what the name of the send is so that you can have it be independent or unique to other sends you might have. No silly questions. This is a complicated program and I can only pretend to understand parts of it, or I can only understand the parts of it that I understand. So, no silly questions. Let's see here. I'm going to start the track playing. Where is there room for more interaction? There is no built-in particle system. This is running off of jitter, which is... oh gosh, how to explain jitter? It's basically... that's maybe a whole other live stream, but it is a... it's taking basically... it's basically a graphical world. Like if you have jit.world, you can basically create... oh, well, that crashed something. Thankfully not vsynth. But maybe that was too much to ask of my poor computer. Basically, it's going to try to create a screen, or not a screen, a world in which to render graphics. And that graphic could be like a square or a plane or a sphere. And then I think you can make particle simulators within that because it's taking place in 3D space. But vsynth is very much comes from like there's like old commercials in the 80s that would have used video synthesizers, blanking on the names of them right now, but like where you see the text kind of like float across the screen and land, and it looks like it's got like feedback. Those are basically like these modules, and those are, in the case of like the waveform generators, they're generating waveforms, but you can also like bring movies into vsynth or images in and mess with them, modulate them. I'm not a master of jitter. I don't even think I'm a master of vsynth, but I really like this playing with 2D and playing with feedback in different layers. And so it creates the illusion of 3 dimensions. But as far as I know, like it doesn't have a generator that can create true like particles. Might need to look into Unity. I know Keith Hamill does a lot of his 3D particle effects in Unity. And so, yeah, there's just other programs that have more of a strength in particle systems. Although I know that you can make, I've seen somebody make a particle system with jitter, but they have to make a very particular build. Yeah, sorry, I'm rambling. But they have to like use jit.world with a bunch of different like you have to generate a certain number, like tell it how many particles to generate and then where to place each of those particles. So it's not a very flexible program. You can modulate it with audio and things like that, but I really like vsynth for, you can turn a dial and just, it doesn't have to be all programmed into objects. Okay, that's enough of me trying and failing to explain that. Let's figure out where to put these other parts. Maybe it needs to be a background element. Something off in this space. But in order to do that, behind everything else. How are we going to make it do that? That's the trick about it all being 2D, is that I can't just place it behind. Well, I can't place it behind the delayed effects, because that's really just it's a feedback thing. But maybe we can try to do something. Something with our additive mixer. Let's just bring it down here. Mix all this down to 1. And how are we going to do it? Maybe we don't have to build anything new. Maybe we just displace our already delayed line. Let's pull up another preview, because it's useful to know where things are. Get this, actually I want it before the fader, because that's what the baseline is controlling. So if we say, like, put this off in a corner and zoom it way far out, that looks bad. It's maybe a little better. I wonder if that's just going to be so confusing. Subtraction, I think, could work, but my only worry is, well, it might just be a matter of where the input is. I also want to try to mask out the middle of this. I think I'm just going to have to move it without the mirroring. Oh goodness, come on. So something off in the corner there. And I'm also going to put a fisheye lens on it so that it's not so square. So now it's just sort of like this weird orb thing in the corner. And what color is it going to be? It's going to be something complementary. Complementary would be reddish. I don't know if I want it to be red though. Well, anyway, if we were to just plug that in it would just be on top. Now, it's also still, what do I need? I need a, no, the fisheye isn't working. It's just kind of moving it along a sphere. Maybe the cart pole. But that might just give it a weird line in the middle. Displacement has to come after the cart pole. But I can still see the framing of it. Oh, now I need a fisheye. No? Oh, before the displacement. Oh, goodness. And then we're going to try Andy's idea of subtracting it. I think that is looking the way I want it to. And now if we're going to kind of put it up in this corner for now. I might actually put it with the center of the eye down in here. At least I'm thinking about it as the eye. But now if we blend it, and you're saying subtract. See, this subtracts, might be a matter of just changing the patch cords, but it's subtracting red light from the blue ribbons. And if I swap it around, it is subtracting similarly. I don't know, maybe that's kind of in the background. Maybe I had it backwards, and it just has to be negative. This one all the way up. That could be working it. I think what it needs now is some major low pass filtering so that it looks like it's kind of in the same-ish space or further back. Well, would you look at that? Thanks, Andy. Okay, so now we've got our new element that's derived from the old one. Let's attach some modulation to it. thinking subtract the blue ribbons from the red light. I think this is working okay. I think what I might actually have to do is... I think this is working fine. I like the way this looks. I'm not going to mess with a good thing. Okay. Let's see here. I can feel it. We're getting close. So the red ball comes in whenever that low melody comes in. Now I'm gonna add a slide onto it. So it's a little more reactive like the guitar. And I think I'm going to move it over slightly more just so it kind of matches the panning. Because it's coming in the right ear. Try to find a color other than red. Okay. I think that's doing pretty well. Now, something for the last piece to interact with. Maybe something to match this this middle melody. We could do thinking like another sphere, sort of mid-distance. Just because I have to try it. Because it's my favorite one. We're going to try our XYZ displays. We're going to try it on this guy here. Doesn't do a whole lot. Okay, we'll keep it simple. Or rather, we just won't worry about always using this one plugin. Okay. So, something for the last voice to do would be to... well, we could just, like, change the Let's try some yellow sprinkles. The only way I know how to make that work is with the XYZ. It's not going to be based on the same delay chain, it's going to have to be based on, I think, the main line, or the main layer. So, yet another blend mode mixer. Turn this off for a moment just so that we can see what's going on. Because I've got some weird framing things going on. Going to need preview. And I'm also going to need a colorizer or a hue modulator. We'll use a colorizer. And Andy suggests yellow. Where has our color gone? Let's instead have it after, because that seems to work fine. Maybe it does have to be a hue modulator. Not sure why that would have to be. I should be able to change the color anytime, but okay. So now it's like a nice golden, but for some reason it is going outside the bounds of our frame, and I don't really know why. It seems to be smaller. Oh, weird. Why is it doing that? Kind of looks like it might just be a frame thing. So let's bring them together. Okay. Now we're going to make our points nice and small. We're going to modulate them a little bit. We're also going to have less of them so that we can see them a little better. Now that we can see these yellow dots, I think that looks really beautiful. But I kind of want them to have some feedback so that they aren't just polka dots, but are kind of a little more shimmery. Something else we might do is maybe a temporal filter so that they are kind of stuck in time a little bit. And then the other thing is maybe, let's see here. It would probably have to be okay, come on, goodness, lost my train of thought. Yellow dots, trying to make them sparkle. I'm trying to make a feedback loop that is like just on those dots. So if I take a Luma key and let's just see what happens if we route this into here and this back into here. I do need a displacement. I love my delay lines. That is not good enough. That just seems to be freezing it kind of in this weird grid shape. You know, I take it back. I guess that's not going to work. Maybe it'll just have to be feedback. I think we're right around there. Okay, let's try making a few less dots. And then some feedback. No, that's not quite what I want. Does it need to be added to itself to give it some glow? It's a little more luminescent. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's see here now. Just double checking. Yeah, okay. So what we're gonna do is have the high melody. I think it's probably going to be similarly scaled between 0 and 0.8. That's going to go between -1 and 1. And it is going to map to input 2. Let's not forget our slider. So now what should happen is every time an attack happens on that high melody, these yellow sparkles are going to appear and light up. Let's give it a listen, see what happens. seeing one problem, which is that the yellow dots are creating a grid line. It's because they're taking every piece of light that is in there, so I'm going to have an edge filter. Cut out all the extra stuff. And a preview to see exactly what I'm doing. I think that's a lot better. Still doing it. So how can we fix that? So it shouldn't be, oops. It shouldn't be creating a grid. I'm just going to stop this for a second and control this manually, so that we don't have to wait. Okay, so it is. Oh, I see it. I see it now. How far down do we have to go to get rid of that grid line? Whoa. Is it the feedback? It is the feedback. So we'll have less feedback. Or actually what we'll do is we'll map the feedback to the same parameter so that it only goes up when the part is playing, and that way we won't have to worry about setting it to a specific number. So we're going to scale it between 0 and 0.8, and it'll go from 0.2 to 0.8. Okay, let's give that another try. It takes a while for this one to come in. Okay. There's some things I want to tweak about it just to match up um, the XYZ dots with the part that's happening here. And I also want to find some way to fade it in and out with the start of the song, but I think this is pretty much gonna be it. So thanks, Andy. Thanks for sticking around. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna make those small adjustments, and I did also see some grid lines still in the background there, so it's just matter of tweaking one or two parameters. But yeah, that's basically, I think, it. So yeah, we just took all of our inputs, we routed them through some patterns and some delay lines that I thought were cool, and that's that. You're very welcome. I might do this again sometime. We'll see. I think you might be the only one who stuck around long enough to learn anything, but it was a pleasure. So I will, yeah, go get Max. Go play around with it. It might have a trial. I know you can download it and just not be able to save anything. Um, that's kind of what you get for purchasing the full version, is the ability to save your projects. Which reminds me, I should save that and write it as this one's called blue iris.json into blue iris. Where are you? There it is. Save that, because this is currently a not saved project, so we'll save it. Great. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop the stream here. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later.